Hi, I want to welcome everybody to Self-Help Graphics and Arts in the Studio virtual series. In the Studio is part of Self-Help's The Artist Lab series that supports and promotes the artwork and voices of artists of color. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that Self-Help Graphics resides in Apachagna, currently known as the Los Angeles neighborhood of Boyle Heights, where the original peoples of this territory, the Tongva, Chumash, and Tatiavam, were first displaced. This is a particularly important matter in this moment, and it's it's important to acknowledge that as we begin. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. My name is Álvaro Márquez, and we have with us today Miyo Stevens-Gandara and Juan de Dios Mora for our Artist in the Lab series, Artist Lab in the Studio series. And today we'll be talking a little bit about our current projects in the past few months, and the adjustments we've had to make as we've adjusted to life in this time of social distancing and in the context of these current political uprisings and what that has meant for us in our practice and in our lives. So first, I'd like to introduce Miyo Stevens-Gandara. She's an artist and educator and assistant professor of photography at Rio Hondo College. Miyo, welcome.
Hi guys. Let's see. Can you guys hear me? Because I can't see myself. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So can you go to the next slide? So I'm going to introduce some work. I thought I would just introduce myself for those of you who aren't familiar with my relationship with Self-Help Graphics. I have been going to Self-Help Graphics since I was in high school. So it goes way back. I went to Schur High School in Montebello. So I've had a long relationship with Self-Help Graphics. My most recent work that I did with Self-Help was the Utopia Dystopia portfolio, in which I asked 26 artists to make 2 images, one of utopia, one of dystopia, and they came together to form a whole deck of cards, which were all prints. And Alvaro is one of the artists that participated in that. So this is an image of that work. And that was last year. So do you want to go? Okay. So these are my 2 images that I made for that portfolio. The one on the left is the dystopia, and the one on the right is a utopia. Kind of my vision of what dystopia and utopia are. Dystopia is when we destroy the world we live in. And of course, utopia, maybe utopia is what happens when we're gone and the earth comes back without us and it's rejuvenated and nature is allowed to thrive. So those are those 2 images. Those are Linocut reduction prints. Okay, next one. And this is just a quick installation shot of the show. So each artist got to display their works side by side. And I had, it was a really great opportunity because, you think, oh, 26 artists is a lot of artists, but, it wasn't hard to come up with a list of artists. And I know a lot of great people. And for me, it was an opportunity after the 2016 election to make something where the artists got to say about their feelings about, well, if you're unhappy now, what is utopia for you? And what is dystopia? So that's the great thing about Self-Help Graphics is they give artists opportunity to see their vision through, and they supported this project, which is really great. And it's available online. Got to plug that at Self-Help. Okay, next one. Some other work I've been doing. I'm also a photography professor. I hope some of my students are listening. I teach photography at Rio Hondo College, and I really love it. And so I do have a very active photography practice. So these are all images called the Wunderkammer series, which is a cabinet of curiosities. And basically, these are all things that I found on the street, or my kid found on the street, or my husband found on the street. So these are all these dead bees. And so we just collect them. And I shot this without a camera. They are scans with the scanner bed left open, so the background becomes black. Go to the next one, and we can go through these kind of quickly. So this is a cholla cactus kind of skeleton dried up. Go to the next one. This is a creosote, a little sprig of creosote, which is a native plant. And the next one, these are all these dead June bugs. I'm terrified of June bugs, actually. They're loud and they come at you, and for me, they always hit me in the face or something. But I kept finding all these dead bugs, and they're not scary when they're dead, I guess. So I just collected them, and we ended up scanning those too, and that was cool. So the next one, some really delicate dried up leaves that have lost most of their components but left only the veins, which is cool. Next, pomegranate. I'm sure you guys, so these are all like backyard things or things around me. So the point being that instead of just passing things by, paying attention to the detail and the wonder of nature in its form as it is, and that you don't have to go to exotic places to find something interesting. So the next one, this is a jawbone my daughter found on the beach. When my husband and I got married, my daughter brought this up to us, and I think it's a seal jawbone. And the next slide. And these are little sycamore pods, you know, the kind that you trip and stumble on when you're walking down the sidewalk. So these photos were all like 20 inches by 30 inches and large. And I was really lucky to have an opportunity to show these in Japan at the Maho Kubota Gallery. Maho Kubota is a woman gallery owner in Tokyo, Japan, and I got connected to them through an old friend in school. Her name's Yurie Nagashima, and she's a well-known photographer. And so she kind of passed on my name, and we got to have a show together. So that was super, super lucky, and I'm very fortunate to have that chance. Let's go to the next one. Also, I've been doing embroidery, and I'm excited to show this because these are the kinds of works that I actually never show at Self-Help or talk about much. And I connected with Alvaro over this because he's also doing embroidery. And so I think that's important. I like it because it's something that's not considered like high art. It's a more of a what people label as a craft, which I want to toss out these labels because I don't like a hierarchy of art forms, and I think that's something that's imposed on us from a really colonial mindset that embroidery is not like, you know, worthy of high art. So anyway, that's kind of why I do these. These are all referencing things that show environmental degradation. So this one is the ice sheets. This one is a type of frog that is now extinct due to climate change. This one is an image I created representing drought. And this one is the Great Barrier Reef. This took forever. That's the one thing about embroidery I guess I don't love is that it takes forever. But yeah, each thing I embroidered, and it took quite a while to do this one. Next slide. And then one other piece that I want to talk about is it's actually a film on Super 8 that was commissioned by the Echo Park Film Center. And I want to drop their name because they reached out and asked me if I wanted to make a film, and they commissioned it with the Andy Warhol Foundation. And so I got to experiment and learn a Super 8 film. And so for that project, I can't show the film, but I have a film still that I shot for that piece. So this is an image that I printed. And so when people buy the film, I actually give them one of these prints with the film that they buy. Go to the next one. And then this is a gallery installation shot of my film kind of being shown in the gallery. So it's the image on the screen on the right. This was for a show, a group show called Videotopia that was shown in Tokyo last month at the Maho Kubota Gallery. And so I'm super lucky to have that connection. One thing I want to say about that too is that my family, I'm Japanese American, and my family came here before World War II. And when World War II happened, they were interned in the internment camps, and they lost all contact with our family in Japan. So it's kind of interesting for me to kind of come full circle and be able to have this connection with Japan that that was really lost to my family. So I really appreciate that. Okay, next slide. Just a couple other images. In this film, I also did a lot of hand-drawn animation, just stop motion animation. So that's part of that. And found footage, I also spliced in. And then this is just a quick process shot, because one of the questions we were asked is kind of, what are we doing now? And so I have a real lack of attention. So I have to do different things all the time. So I'm always doing printmaking. I'm always doing some photo, but I'm also always doing embroidery, because sometimes I get tired of being on the computer. Sometimes I like to carve and be really physical. And other times I like to be able to do something while I'm watching TV. So embroidery is the form that I'm working on right now. And so what I'm working on is a series of embroideries of camps where human rights are being violated. So this is the camp called Tornillo. It's a center where they incarcerated children. When they took the migrant children away from their parents, they put them in Tornillo. Tornillo is now closed, but I'm doing little images of camps and things like that. And the reason I say camp is because when my family was interned, they talked about camp, like camp. And as a kid, I thought, oh, they're talking about camping. But no, they were talking about the internment camp. So this kind of idea of a camp or a temporary housing place where, people are kind of suffering. I want to draw attention to that because it's happening now and it's a relevant topic. Okay. And I think that's it, right?
Yeah, thank you so much, Miyo.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Juan de Dios Mora, who's an artist and educator, and he's a senior lecturer at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Welcome, Juan.
Thank you, Alvaro, and thanks for inviting me. And this is gonna be fun. So, saludos from San Antonio. So here's night. So let's have fun. So I'm just gonna let you. I'm gonna let you know a little bit about myself. So I was born and raised in Mexico. And a small town, a small ranch is, and then you can see on the screen, it's Acasico, Jalisco, Mexico. And then you can see on the map where it is. It's really close to Guadalajara. So that's where I was born and raised. And then actually I grew up with working in the fields, growing up, growing, cows, maybe mainly focused on agriculture. So it's one of those things that I really appreciate from Mexico. It's not just that. It's basically all the things that actually kind of give me a lot of concepts from my artwork. So this one is gonna play later in my concept. So Alvaro, can you move to the next slide? So you're gonna see in this slide one image from Laredo. Laredo is basically a border town from Laredo in Mexico, and you're gonna see the guy on the, I think it's your left, with the actual bicycle. So it's a estilo rascuache. Rascuache means that actually you find your surroundings, where you find your surroundings, and you put it together into this artistic form that allows you to actually represent a little bit what you want, a little bit what you want to create with such freedom that nobody's gonna judge you. So this one basically has a little bit of hints of rascuache. So the guy, they created the bicycle with CDs and stuff like that. So that's something that I noticed a lot in my community in Laredo. I live in San Antonio now, but then all this stuff play a role what I do now. So you're gonna see a print and right next to it, you're gonna see a little bit of reference what I use from my community to create my artwork. You're gonna see this little kid and the bicycle with the delantera, which is the front part of the bicycle with the guajolote, which is a turkey. So it's a little bit of, I like to play a little bit goofy, a little bit kind of like a safe side. And then, but a lot of my artwork touches a little bit the political side, how we survive, how we actually rely on an environment, our surroundings to be able to survive and still find beauty, to be able to make it in long ways. So this is actually something that I really like, but also we take pride in what we do. And also, we like to compete to each other. So it's like these type of vehicles, customized in a way that, hey, like to kind of get like a little bit of bragging rights with other people. So you're gonna see this character in the bicycle, right? And he's so proud of what he did. So you're gonna see the right in the middle, right in the middle of the bike, at the bottom of the bike, you're gonna see the Juan Diego with the Virgen Guadalupe. You're gonna find a lot of icons. That's something I like to do. I like to work with a lot of iconography. So this is something that I'm gonna see later in my prints. Can you move to the next slide, Alvaro? So now we're gonna move to the most recent work. So basically, one of the things that actually I learned throughout my experiences, you know, working here in the United States is basically, I already told you, Rasquachi, how we actually, you know, by our surroundings, but also how, you know, coming from a ranch, coming here to the United States, how hard we have to work to be able to get to a certain, you know, status. So I started in actually taking ENSL classes, and then later I moved to college. I didn't have any, I thought they didn't have any future. So when I was taking classes, I was just going for the free education, to tell the truth, because I was getting a free loan. So, and the deal is, you know, later I fell in love with that. So, and then I started to really, really pay some respect towards education. And then I started to embrace education. So this image is gonna see how these characters from my community, how hard they work to be able to move forward, to be able to bring food to the table of their family. So this one is actually a print. It's called King de la Huirita, which is the king of the wheat eater. So you're gonna see this character really, really proud of what he's doing. And then in this series, what I'm doing, I'm paying tribute to all these people that actually, to tell them thank you for the small things that they do, how actually affect us, how it affects society, how actually we can move forward. We don't have to worry about cutting our grass because we have somebody else can do it for us. So I decided to do this character, really representing what he does. He's really proud of what he is. And also all the characters, they're gonna be wearing kind of like the soccer team shirts. And that's a little bit embracing a little bit of the Mexican culture. And then you're gonna find a lot of iconography in my artwork. So you're gonna find little things here and there that actually allows them to make a whole meaning out of this print. So you're gonna find tamales, you're gonna find the whittier, and you're gonna find a pedestal in all of them. Can we move to the next one, Alvaro? So this one is another one. You're gonna find the pedestal is gonna be represented a little bit different with a different design, and all the background they're gonna have different designs. It's something I wanted to do. So this one is actually the shiny barandero, the shiny sweeper. In Mexico, there's people that actually sweep the floors, the streets actually. And then there's a tons of iconography on this one, but this one, he's really, really proud. I want to actually represent it in a way that actually with the chin up, you know, not giving up what they do. Can we move to the next one? This is another one. This one is actually, me doblo pero no me quiebro. I bend but I never break. This one is actually in our community. We have who has the pants? Who's wearing the pants? So this one, I can see the guy. You see in all of them, they're gonna have penacho, which is this crown or headdress, and the headdress is basically a pants facing, you know, upside down, and pants goes down. So that means who's wearing the pants? The pants is giving up. So you're gonna find little things like that that makes the concept a little bit stronger, but also helps a little bit the mood, a little bit the playing words when it comes to my community. Something that actually I want to embrace, humor. Because whenever we get to our table, the only thing we talk is about politics, money, how we're gonna be able to survive. On this one, I want to actually portray a little bit our goofy side, and we deserve respect. We actually need to actually highlight that part of us because we're humans. Can we move to the next one? That's another one. This one is actually Soy Picudo, I'm the finest. You know how proud he is, what he is. You know, and he's wearing the Chivas de Guadalajara shirt. It's something I wanted to represent the Mexicanidad, the Mexican side, how proud he is. In the back, he has a boxing glove. He's wearing a staff, you know, with a soccer ball, and he has a drum representing going ready to go to war or ready to go to work. And also, you know, has the eagle, kind of like taming a little bit the eagle. And right next to it, there's a snake on the floor. Well, actually, the boots, you know, it has a boot and it has a soccer shoe. The boots represent a little bit the norteño side. And then the soccer shoes represent a little bit what we like, you know, the sport. Can we move to the next one? The mecánico, this one is para chill, hay que jalar antes. First work, then chill. Basically, that's something that we do. First, you have to work, and then later you can chill. You can drink a little bit of beer. You can do this, you can do that. And again, you know, all the symbology, all the iconography is something goofy, but also embraces, reinforces the concept. And then still he's wearing the penacho, which is a cap, and then has the Lobos WAP, which is a non-Mexican team. And there's a lot of tons of iconography. Can we move to the next one? And this one is a little bit different. And I work in this one because a huge museum here in the United States asked me to do it. So, and well, didn't ask me, I was working on that one. It was actually basically 20% done carved. So when I was working on that one, they took a look, they were really interested in that one. They kind of asked me to finish it. So I finished. And this one, I want to represent a little bit the struggles of the people that emigrate from either from Mexico to the United States or from Central South America to the United States, how they had to actually cross rivers. And the rivers is actually a symbol of division, a symbol that actually separates culture, separates family, separates a lot of things, separates politics, it separates, you know, even, you know, socioeconomics, you know. It's something that water is something that I represent a lot of my artwork, and something that really represents Laredo, because it's a border town. And this one, you're gonna find this little guy pointing forward, saying, hey, I'm ready, I wanna go over there. And it's actually pointing towards the north. So you're gonna find a lot of iconography. And this one in the back is carrying all the culture, all the heritage that he's bringing to the United States to be able to survive, but also not to miss his hometown. So he's really proud of what he's doing. So there he is. And this one is actually one sketch. Just want to show you what I'm doing right now. So the work in progress, this is still from the new series. So if you guys are interested, just follow me on Instagram. I'm gonna keep posting photos of my new work. Just keep creating.
Thank you so much, Juan.
Yeah.
It's a real pleasure to be chatting with both of you, Miyo and Juan. I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I'm an artist, educator, and researcher that's done a few projects at Self-Help since 2012. I started working with the studio. I'm currently a freelance artist and an adjunct faculty member at East Los Angeles College. And I'm also the co-founder of Artists for Change Now, an organization that was just co-founded with a friend of mine, Julian Lombardi, in June of this year. Much like Juan, I also work in Linocut. My family is also from the state of Jalisco, not far from where Juan's family is from a town called Lagos de Moreno and San Juan de los Lagos in Los Altos de Jalisco. And a project that I did at Self-Help was a part of a residency where I produced a series of 12 prints I called Al Norte Pa' Atrás, and it depicted the story of migration from the perspective of this one farmer. And it was an attempt to tell a story just through images. And a lot of it reflects my parents, my father's, my grandparents' experiences with migration, and my experiences growing up in the farm worker community of East Salinas, California. So it was a really special project that I did with Self-Help. But most recently, I did a census-inspired print that looks at the invisibility of unhoused people in LA County and the way that they are undercounted in the census. I did this in February of this year. And I recently completed my M.F.A. in printmaking from Cal State University, Long Beach. And even though I was not able to actually have a thesis exhibition, I did have to present my work, and I have some digital renderings of the work that I created in order to complete the thesis. This is one of the installations that would have been in my thesis, called The Eagle Tree as a Witness. And the lumber that is used at the base of the tree actually comes from a tree called the Eagle Tree that is located in Compton. And it used to be a marker between two of the original ranchos that colonized what we now call Los Angeles. So it's a lumber of historical importance, but I'm using traditional linocuts to try to make these installations that become a little bit more sculptural. I am really interested in sort of this long-term history of the privatization of land as a commodity, as this private resource. Pretty much in Los Angeles recently, but in the Americas in general. And this project, this piece was really an attempt to think about how the privatization of land lies at the root of so many of the social issues which we encounter this day, including homelessness and evictions and gentrification. You know, this whole idea that somebody can own land, treat it as a commodity, extract resources from it, and exclude others from it is really central to my practice at the moment. And going along with that, the second installation in my thesis would have been geometries of displacement, where I use, similar to Juan, I have these iconographic references. In my case, the iconographic references have historical meaning to particular periods and issues in Los Angeles, in the creation of what we now call Los Angeles. And I use these 4 maps, which are snapshots of time. On the far left, you have a map of Los Angeles in the 1700s at the time of the Portola expedition, mapping out the indigenous place names before colonization. Next to that, you have a map of colonial Los Angeles as it was subdivided into the ranchos, which is the beginning of the privatization of land in what we call Los Angeles. And then I used an image of a redlining map, which you can see here. There's a detail. And redlining was a practice of restricting certain neighborhoods by banking practices that were racist and maintained racial segregation in the cities in the 1930s. It comes from a homeowners loan corporation map, which is basically a historical document that I try to work directly with. And the idea was to create this map across time that made these connections, that showed that the creation of Los Angeles is rooted in this colonial encounter, and that all of these issues which we see, even something as simple as the architecture that we see in Los Angeles, part of the built environment, it's part of this history of displacement and the erasure of indigenous peoples. Here's a detail of one of the redlining map. And if you see on the red lined areas, there's a denser red area, which is embroidery. So I embroidered directly onto the map. So all the maps have embroidery directly on them, and they're highlighting the social creation of space. In this case, really highlighting these racialized spaces, which really shape Los Angeles and give us an understanding of the construction of space over time. The third installation would have been a projection on a wall where I wanted people to cast their shadows and be complicit in the history of the erasure of indigenous people in Los Angeles. So what I would have projected onto the wall was a map from 1769 of all of the indigenous villages in the Los Angeles basin prior to colonization. And upon walking up, there would be these linocuts that would be placed on the wall of a Tongva Key, which is a traditional dwelling. But by walking up to look at the linocut, the viewer would be implicated in this history by causing the erasure and the shadows, casting shadows on the installation. And also iconographic references that deal with different issues in different historical periods. You have the covered wagon, you have the tent, which is now so ubiquitous to Los Angeles, unfortunately, with all the unhoused people. You've got the RVs, where a lot of people are also living on the streets in these motorhomes. And then you have the traditional Tongva dwelling. Again, it was my attempt at using this traditional printmaking, but to create larger forms and installations. And most recently, since the social distancing and not really having access to a studio, I've started translating those same maps. So this is a map of redlining in Los Angeles done as an embroidery. Much like Miyo, I am also interested in this idea of crafts that are not taken seriously, but really treating them like the art objects that they are, and understanding that there's a history to this classed and racist hierarchy of what is considered fine art and what is not. And I think that the three of us in particular ways kind of try to do that, and I hope we can touch on that. But before we switch off to this next period, I wanted to do a quick plug, because one of the things that I have been working on very intensely for the last few months is a project that I started with a friend of mine named Julian Lombardi. And I just wanted to plug it in real quick. It's called Artists for Change Now. And we are an organization committed to helping non-traditional and young artists of color that are pursuing degrees in art. And we're announcing a scholarship that is going to be going live in the next month. And we're offering a scholarship of $1,000 to 10 students all across the US who are studying who are studying degrees in art, who are pursuing degrees in art, and who can demonstrate financial need. We just ask that they identify as BIPOC, as BIPOC, and we will be posting more information online. And if you can follow me or follow us online, we'd be happy to share more information about that scholarship. And this is our contact information with our websites and our Instagram handles in case you want to get in touch with any of us or learn more about our practices. As we transition onto this next part, I want to thank you all for sharing your work and talk about this next question, which I hope we can all discuss, which is this idea of adapting to these new circumstances and what it means to make. And I'm wondering if you all can talk a little bit about how you've had to adjust your studio practice or even how you exhibit work in this context. I don't know if either Juan or Miyo wants to go first.
Miyo, go first.
How I've adapted my practice during this pandemic?
Yeah.
I'm really lucky in that the stuff that I'm currently working on is easy to do at home. So like embroidery is something small and contained, and I can kind of work on that. And I also like that it's very inexpensive. Like the little threads that you can buy are really inexpensive and easy to get. The only thing that's kind of tough is that, you know, you can't really see the colors. You have to order online. Well, one thing I would like to say, and I wonder if people out there watching can relate. I know that Melanie, who you had last in the studio talk, she had conditions that didn't allow her to go out. And I have similar, like I have asthma and diabetes. And so during this pandemic, the one thing that's been hard is I can't go anywhere. So my husband, he's really great, and he has tried to go out and procure things for me. But that's the one thing, is being able to in person get supplies and things like that has hindered my practice. But other than that, you know, I have stuff already that I'm working on, so that's not so much a problem. But part of my practice is teaching, and in the teaching aspect, it's been a super big challenge, and I'm sure you guys can relate to that. I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, well, Juan, I don't know if you want to talk about the teaching transition, or maybe both, or how you've had to adjust in your own practice.
I think mixing a little bit both, you know, working in your studio, but also teaching is fun, because sometimes, you know, what I used to do when last semester, because half of the semester was face-to-face, and the half it was online. Sometimes I was carving, doing live demos for my students, and they had fun, you know, just watching me doing that instead of Instagram. So doing live, live carving, something like that, it really helps everyone in the fact that students, they can ask you questions. You can answer it by just showing them how to carve. Luckily, I'm really lucky because I have a press here in my house. I have in my garage. It gets really hot because it's Texas, but then I have so much fun in the garage. I'm sweating, but then it's so much fun, you know, working in your own stuff. I think this benefits me in a way that sometimes, you know, I don't want to go out. I stay in the studio. It helps me to actually finish some projects. I took advantage of this time, and I finished tons of projects that I have, you know, kind of halfway, and I finished a lot of them. So it actually was fun. But then now the prices of inks and stuff like that went up, you know, and then free shipping some places is kind of hard now, and the sales for me kind of went down. So before I used to sell prints like $5, $10, and sometimes I used to use it for materials. It was hard. So now I use my house to invite some friends, some collectors to buy some artwork. But then it's hard, you know. But then teaching, it's hard still, because studio classes, unless you have like a tablet for, you know, to do drawing or something like that, but it's really challenging. And in this semester, I'm still figuring out what I'm gonna do. I bought a tablet. I have an iPhone. I'm gonna have 2 cameras to show my students what I'm gonna be doing. So I'm getting ready and getting prepared. It's fun. It's hard, but hopefully the students appreciate what we're doing, because they don't see what we're doing behind to be able to get to a point. They don't see that, you know? They think, hey, you know, we only do this and then we only assign the assignments. No, we have to put a lot of thought, a lot of concept. We have to do a lot of research to be able to offer a good education.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a steep learning curve in learning how to teach in a new way and having to do that in a short matter of time and still provide quality instruction. So it sounds like you've had to make some technological investments to make it work. How about yourself, Miyo, in terms of your adjusting to the new teaching?
Oh yeah, I had to buy a document camera. I'm like, you know, I teach photo. You'd think I'd know how to like show stuff on my phone, but I can't, you know, it's so hard. So I ended up buying a document camera to show what I was doing. It was just easier to teach with. And I'm just curious, like, especially you guys, like teaching my students how to roll up a plate, you know, when I'm trying to, you know, I show how to roll up a Linocut and hand print. That's hard because I can't see, you know, they can't really see what I'm doing and I can't see what they're doing as well. And little things like that.
You know, in the positive note, I think, you know, right now, because of the pandemic, one thing that I learned is basically I had 2 sessions every week with the students for each class, and they really miss me. They're like, oh, Juan, you're so much fun. I want to see you because this is so boring just being at the house, not talking to anyone. Just having that interaction with the students, they make them happy just to interact with the instructor. And that, you know, I'm really happy and that they get enthusiastic about their education. So it's something, you know, fun too. It's sad at the same time.
Sure.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know for me, I wasn't teaching art this semester. I was teaching US history at East Los Angeles College. And even that was a pretty steep learning curve for me, who had never taught an online course, to then try to make the coursework still accessible and interesting, but having to learn the platform. But I can't imagine teaching something like printmaking at this moment, where you don't, like you're saying, Miyo, you don't have that opportunity to give that instantaneous feedback if somebody is using the braille incorrectly, if there's too much ink or if there's too little ink, or there's all these factors that you have to learn. And I think that that's one of the benefits of studio classes to begin with, right? Is having having the instructor there and providing that feedback. And instead of trying to struggle and learn and make all these mistakes, you're able to adjust your technique according to the feedback you're getting.
Yeah. Hey, Alvaro, I'm wondering if you can like show the gallery view, so because I don't think anybody has seen me the whole time. Not that it's. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I wonder if you guys have this experience, but you know, when I was teaching in the spring, we got a lot of pressure like to be asynchronous because students don't have the technology, and I relate to that. I want to be as accessible as possible, but what I discovered is actually the students, they wanted to see their teacher on video, they wanted to see each other. So even though for some it's challenging, like they really wanted a little bit of community that they had left, which was on video, which was the Zoom. Do you guys have that?
Juan?
Okay, you know, one thing that, you know, when I say lucky, you know, in so many, you know, levels, the university offers to the students to actually check out some, you know, laptops or tablets from the university. So that allows them to be in you know, to work with this type of situation. And also, you know, I try to, I embrace, or I try to encourage my students to use GroupMe or other, you know, apps or something like that they use a lot. I go in there, but I don't get in their business. But then one thing is actually what I like to do is to actually motivate them to embrace technology in a way that benefits all of us. You know, sometimes, you know, one time, you know, one student was making fun of me, and I was reading the comments. I didn't say anything. Then at the end of the semester, Mr. Mora, do you figure out what was, you know, I was making fun of you? Yeah. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, no big deal. You know, this is just, you know, it's everything about learning. That's, you know, that's wonderful. You know, social media, if it is learning, you're taking advantage of learning, that benefits all, you know, all of us.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when you really feel like, oh man, I'm a lot older than these kids. They know how to do everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of students, I agree with you, they didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
And then it was really difficult to even contact them through email. So, and then I struggle, I email them almost every day until I actually get a hold of them. And I was like, here's the handout. Here, I record some sessions. Please look at them and finish the assignment. Then if you don't have materials, just print in, scrap paper or whatever you can find and just get it done, because I want to give you a grade. And I understand the situation. So I wasn't that strict when it comes to grading.
Yeah, I think you got to be flexible.
Yes.
I mean, I think being flexible as a teacher is almost the same as being flexible as an artist during this time, because you have a choice, sink or swim. You can like just say, oh, I give up, and don't bother doing everything you can, or you can say, all right, this is an opportunity to figure something new out.
This is an opportunity for creativity. They can flourish. The students, they can actually still going for the conventional materials. They go for the unconventional, and that allows them to be experimental. They can flourish out of that. Alvaro, you have something to say?
Because they're not going to have a press when they graduate, most likely, right? For a while. So it's kind of like figure out how to do things at home, I think it's a good opportunity for that.
I mean, I know for me, it's been really interesting to see just amongst the students that I've kept in touch with from my time at Long Beach, how they've adjusted in my own practice. I think that's why I started doing embroideries, and I'm working with fiber now, because I still want to print, but I'm going to be directly printing the fiber and doing things that I can work from home and not requiring a big studio space. I know that for me, one of the things that I face in my teaching was having students, many of whom who did not have regular internet access, and I was teaching a history class, so I basically made everything asynchronous, because a lot of my students also had kids, they're parents, they're non-traditional students. So in my mind, I was thinking, how do I expect them to perform like a quote unquote regular student in this irregular time? So I just tried to be really flexible with everybody, make everything asynchronous, asked them to keep up with the readings, still did our assignments and our quizzes, but I gave everybody extra time, and anybody who asked for an extension got one. And I think this is a good segue for us to maybe think about this last question that I was hoping that we could discuss, which is just, like there's the elephant in the room, which is, the world is on fire right now. There's so much going on, from number 45 and the dumpster fire that is the White House, to COVID-19, to the death of George Floyd. These are all things that I think are really in the air right now, and it's really important not to forget that and not to smooth it over and pretend like everything's okay. And I'm wondering if maybe we could switch gears here and talk a little bit about what it means to make in this period, because I know that for me, I did my plug earlier about the scholarship. I'm currently working on a commission with the El Segundo Museum of Art, as M.F.A, where I'll be in a show that's opening up in October. So I'm working on that commission, but other than that, I personally have felt like my energy is required elsewhere at this time, because there's so much going on that I know that I sort of had a moment to look inward and say, well, I'm done with school. I have all this energy. I want to do something that has a direct impact. And that's why I decided to put my effort and time into the scholarship to help other students, because I want to create something that I would want as a student. And that's been my reaction to this context. And I'm wondering if both of you could speak a little bit about maybe what these last few months have been for you on a personal, on a professional, on an artistic level, and if there's any differences you notice, or anything you've had to confront, or in any ways that this has impacted you all.
I'll let Juan answer first.
I think we live in a time that, it's sad, it's a lot of things going on, especially with COVID. And then we have a president that gives us a lot of material to do satire artwork. So the deal is, to deal with something political in the artwork, you have to be affected by it. And all the political decisions, you're always going to be affected, either directly or indirectly. So my artwork is, I didn't actually show some of the political stuff that I'm, having doing, but I have been doing the current president, making fun of him, doing satire. And the deal is, our job, and it's always, our personal views, it's an opinion. It's nothing that to induce, some kind of like, violence or anything like that. So no. Ours is to document, to actually document something that happens now. So later it can become something, a resource for historians or even for our artists, to see what was happening during this time. And history every day happens history. So I think our job is to actually document all this stuff through our artwork. And I think, a lot of the artists now, because we have some time to be able to express certain feelings or concepts, I think this is the perfect time, especially, how we're gonna be dealing the next election, how we're gonna actually prevent certain things, how we, like Shepherd Ferry, the poster, that was really popular during that time. And then that really helps a little bit, the new generation to embrace a little bit politics, to vote, So our job is to actually, I'm not sure it's gonna be national level, but it could be here, on a small level, with your friends, doing an artwork that actually is gonna help them to understand what was going on and how it's gonna affect our future.
Sure, that's interesting. So you kind of take a documentarian approach, where your work reflects this particular climate, and it has also a pedagogical aspect to it. And
yes.
I wonder, Miyo, if you could talk a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, I think Juan has a great point. By the way, I want to make a little aside and just say the technical mastery of his work is mind-blowing. And like, if the people watching have no idea, Linocut is carved. So all his work, I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing. Anyway, so getting back to making work, I mean, I think for me, all my work, no matter how subtle or how direct, has to have meaning. And otherwise, for me, there's no joy in making it, right? And so for me, making work in a vacuum would just be would lack soul. And so I think a lot of artists, we without just saying, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to talk directly about this, it just comes through us in how we interpret different things. Like the Wunderkammer series is very minimalist, like the dead bees. But yeah, there's a reason why we're finding dead bees all over the street. I've got jars filled with dead bees. So no matter how direct or how subtle, artists are going to reference, what's going around and what's happening and documenting those moments, right? But also, I'm really big on having part of my practice be teaching, because what I thrive on is a connection with people. That whole utopia dystopia portfolio I did with 26 artists, that was an excuse for me to like, hey guys, what do you think about this? And to connect. And so the teaching for me is also the real work that's not tokenism. It's real work that I can do to make change, right? I can, guess what? Now I have tenure, I can change the curriculum, right? I can make the curriculum more woke. I can show artists of color and women artists that I never saw when I was in school, constantly revamping because I want my students to see what I didn't get to see and I thought was wrong, right? So that's the real work that I do. Another thing that is important to me is, I teach at Rio Hondo. We're nearly 90% Latino, and most of my students are, their parents are from another country. They're immigrants, right? And so they're the first people to go to school, and I'm sure this story is familiar to you guys, but I always make my students, except during a pandemic, go on a field trip. And I say, hey guys, take up space. This is your place, try to get them to go places that are places they don't feel welcome before, until the teacher, kind of brings them into that space and says, no, this is for you too. So for me, even though art is important and I'm always going to do art that references now, it's the teaching element that I feel like I can really make the most change.
Sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, because I know that both of you are really, you know, education is a big part of your practice for both of you. I know that for me, you touched on a lot of things that resonated, because even though right now I'm not, you know, I don't currently have a full-time teaching job, I do feel like the most direct impact that I can have is facilitating certain structures of mentorship that I wish would have existed for myself. And that's sort of the inspiration for this Artists for Change Now scholarship, is really trying to create an organization that I wish as an undergrad would have existed. Creating sort of supports of mentorship, supports for financial support. And I do think that oftentimes the work we do in the classroom, outside of the classroom, supporting students, is part of an activist bent, right? It is part of the activism that we do. I thought it was interesting what you were saying, Juan, about the documentarian aspect, because I know that for me, I have really struggled with my own place in sort of where I fit, you know, sort of my conception of art as politics, you know, and I think that my work on sort of the privatization of land in Los Angeles is very rooted in sort of documenting these processes and making them visible. But I'm wondering if I know that for me, with the resurgence of the social uprising, for me, it's been a wake-up call to ask myself whether or not I'm doing enough. And I'm wondering if you guys feel that way, or if you feel that the work that you're doing is already responding in a way you find adequate, like to be doing what you need to be doing.
You know, I think it's, you know, one of the things we had as an artist, you know, especially Latinos or, you know, diverse, you know, artists, is basically be united, you know, and then collaborate, you know. That's one of those things, you know. My little brother, he's in social media all the time, you know. He's actually noticing all the things happening, you know, in Chicago. What happened, I think it was 2 days ago or yesterday, you know, we're starting to loot in the stores and stuff like that. So the deal is, there's different things going on, you know. But we had to react in a way that our artwork is always going to support the good things. It's not going to actually initiate, you know, like violence, like I said before. So the deal is, if I'm doing enough, I think I'm doing enough. Sometimes, you know, I do my artwork, I show it to collectors, and then I explain my point. Even in, you know, whenever I have a lecture, something like that, I have an artwork that really talks about certain issue. And students specifically, they notice that and they're like, oh, wow, you know, I didn't know I can actually be an activist. I can actually make my voice heard, you know, especially people of color, you know, or people that actually, they don't have a true history here in the United States, especially immigrants. So the deal is a little bit, me and myself as a, you know, instructor, I feel that every time I teach or I sign a project with a political message that I have to do, the students, they embrace it. So, you know, they embrace it in a way that they benefit a little bit what they want to try to portray as an artist, you know. And nowadays, you know, there's a lot of things that people want to say through their artwork, and then I think it's going to benefit all of us. But if I'm doing something, I think a little bit, yes, and I think it's all of us, our job to say something, to be united.
Yeah, I think you got to say something. I mean, but doing something and doing enough is going to look different for each artist, right? And you would do the thing that is, you know, you can't be some, you know, like for me with, you know, asthma, diabetes, I can't be out there on the street protesting, even though that's exactly what I would be doing, right, if I could. So you really, and if that bothers you inside, yeah, you got to do more. You got to do something else. You can't make an excuse, right? But you've got to do the thing that's actually going to help. And I think one of the ways we can look at it is, okay, each time that one of us gets an opportunity, you know, you get to talk to a collector, or you get exposure with the museum, or you get a platform like this to talk, you use that opportunity to raise up everybody else, right? So, you know, I always pass on, you know, my students to other people to show their work, or, you know, if, you know, being a teacher, now that I'm a teacher, I try to bring in as many people I know into my new fold of people, you know, opportunities, so that we all kind of raise up from that, you know? And it's important to, yeah, just kind of evaluate. I mean, I see what you're saying, Alvaro, in that it's a moment where we should think about it and be mindful, are we doing enough? And not just keep floating on in the universe. I mean, I don't think we're like that anyway, but I think, yeah, you got to check yourself and say, okay, well, what else can I do? You know?
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that anybody had to do more. I think it was just for the sake of sort of opening up this conversation, because I know that for me, it's something that I think I've thought a lot about, even in my time in grad school, really thinking about at least like the political nature of the content of my work, but really thinking about where it fits in larger structures and what it means to create artwork. And you know, as we were talking earlier too, in terms of these social divisions of what's considered art or high art, or, I think that in different ways, you know, Miyo, you look at, you use embroidery, and you look at the history of Japanese internments and these different forms of state repression that you trace through your work that has a political, obviously this very political bent. And Juan, I think that, you know, you take on like this working class border culture, and you sort of show it in this beautiful light. You know, it's very race and class sort of imagery and iconography that you're conjuring up. And I think that also has a strong political undertone because of the populations that you're portraying with such technical expertise and beauty. So thank you both for joining us tonight, and thank you everybody else for joining us in this Facebook Live event. I want to thank Miyo and Juan for agreeing to join me in this conversation, and I'd like to thank Alexa and Marbella from Self Help Graphics for facilitating this. Everybody have a great night, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Alvaro.